So what kind of visa does a TESL newbie need to teach overseas? Well, there are a number of choices, especially if you decide, as I hope you have by now, to stay the long term. Once you've got that 1 year or 2 years in, maybe you don't want to renew your work visa, or maybe you don't want to be tied to one specific job. Well, there are options available. Today, I'm going to talk about those options so that you, as TESL newbies, especially as you become less of a newbie, have options and know what those options are. I'm Teacher David, and this is TESL for Newbies. So depending on where you come from, your home country, there are different options for you available automatically if you want a visitor visa. For example, when I came to Taiwan, there were options 30-day, 60-day, and now I believe there's even 90-day visitor visa options available for you. So that means you can go into the country, you can stay in the country as a visitor, and you don't have to leave. You don't have to apply for anything. It's automatically included. This is some kind of deal between different countries. You have to find out for your own country and for the country you're going to go to. So that's for visiting. So visiting, as it sounds, doesn't mean working. But what if you want to work? Well, visiting a country, as I've mentioned in a previous video, is a great way for you to go to a country, kind of get a feel, and think about whether you want to work in that country. Think about whether you want to live in that country. Because for us, as TESL teachers, when we work, we live. Where we work is where we live. So that is an issue you need to concern yourself with. So now there are a couple short-term visas available that are connected to visitor visas. Just put them aside for now. They're not for us. Just forget about that. What I want you to think about is, if you're in a country, what if somebody sees you, or what if your friend introduces you, pretend you have a friend there, for example, they introduce you to a local cram school that's desperate for a foreign teacher, and they say they'll pay you to stay under the books. People do this. So they stay for whatever it is, the 60 days, the 90 days, and then you have to leave the country unless you want to bring on a whole new set of problems. So what they do, I'm not suggesting you do this. Not suggesting you do this. But what they do is they stay up to the kind of couple days before their visa expires, their visitor's visa. They're working. Then they go to the nearest neighboring country. So here in Taiwan, the most common place people will go to is Hong Kong. It's an hour or so flight. You just, boom, maybe not even an hour. Boom, go there. It's another country technically. You go there, you come back to Taiwan, you enter, boom, you got another 90 days. So I've heard of people getting harassed a little bit. Harassed might not be the right word. I mean, after all, you're doing something a little bit sketchy. But they get harassed when they come back if it happens too many times, and I guess there's evidence of this in your passport. So you got to think about whether that's an option you want to do. I strongly suggest you don't go for that option. Now, often there's the problem that if you want to be an English teacher in a non-English speaking country, most countries only offer visas to people from 5 countries. And those countries are native English speaking countries: Canada, UK, Australia, etc. So if you're not from one of those countries, but you speak English really well, it kind of makes life difficult for you. So you got to think about what's best for you to do. I'm going to suggest do everything you can to legally get hired, and that's visa number 2 we're going to discuss. So by far the most common method for TESL newbies to get a job is to sign a contract or connect with a company back in their home country, get them, in a sense, to sponsor you, to give you that contract, so when you get overseas, you can get what's called a work visa. And that work visa then becomes what you need to stay in the country for the year. It becomes here in Taiwan, it's called an ARC, an Alien Residency Certificate. You get that for the year, and you get your work permit also at the same time. So your kind of entrance visa turns into a work permit. So you've got a work permit, you have an ARC, and now you're legal to stay in that country for a year. Sounds great, and it can be great. What if you don't like the company you're with? That's when it goes back to, like we discussed a couple weeks back, you're stuck, aren't you? If you don't like the company that you're working with, if you find out what they promised while you were back home and what they offer when you get there, they can be completely different or quite different, disappointingly different, we'll say anyway. So, however, you need to put your time in. What you need to do is you need to stick it out, or you need to get a new job with a company that's willing to then give you a new work permit and a new ARC based on their company, instead of just saying, that's it, I'm done, I'm quitting this job. No, you can't do that. You gotta be connected to something. As a foreigner in most countries, especially here in Taiwan, for example, you as a foreign laborer, as a foreign worker, you must be connected to a job. If you have just the basic work visa, the basic ARC. But once you've been here for a while, a couple options start opening up. We'll talk about marriage next. So if you find you've been in the country for a while, you find you've met that special someone perhaps, and you decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to get married. Well, congratulations. Good on ya. I hope you're happy. But for our purposes, the great thing that does is that cuts the tie between you, your work permit, and your ARC with a company. You no longer now need to be tied to a company. On your ARC, there's going to be a line that says, who is sponsoring you? Normally, it's going to be the name of the school you work for, the school/company, whatever kind of work you've gotten. Now, after you're married, your spouse's name goes there. So you're no longer tied to any school or company. You can quit if you want. You can go to different places. You can stay home and not work. It doesn't matter. You're now tied to your wife. So as long as you stay married, once you get divorced, there goes that option. But as long as you stay married, you're able to stay in whatever country you're in indefinitely. But you still need to renew it every year. It's still a every year annual renewal fee and an annual renewal application. Okay, so you've got your marriage ARC, marriage-based ARC, but you've been in the country now for 5 years or more. Some countries vary on that. When I first came to Taiwan, it was 7 years, not 5 years. Anyway, so you've been in there and you find out after a certain number of years, you can get out of all of this, whether it's a marriage visa or a work-based visa, all this stuff, and you can get a permanent residency certificate. So in Taiwan, that's called an APRC, an Alien Permanent Resident Certificate. And with this, instead of just an ARC, it now allows you to pay a certain number of years, a certain fee, and then you never pay again. You never renew again. You're not connected to a person or to a company. You're now essentially a resident of that country. However, that doesn't mean you have all the rights of regular residents, of local residents, but you got pretty much most of them. One thing you can't do is vote, but you can drive. You can, depending on where you are, buy a house, buy land. Not everywhere, you'd have to still look into that. You can do other things, most things that local residents can do. You can go work at 7-Eleven if you want, if that floats your boat. There's lots of options now available to you. And heaven forbid you get married, but you end up getting divorced. Happily, you don't have to leave now. If you want, you can still stay because you're no longer tied to the marriage certificate. You're no longer tied to your wife. You're tied to yourself. So options are very, very much open in that case. And you can stay as long as you want. I've been here now, 18 years or so. I've had my APRC at least 10 years, and that's opened the door for me for lots of places. And if you're somebody from a country that doesn't have this reciprocity with Taiwan, that isn't one of the 5 major native English-speaking language countries, If you get an APRC somehow, you can now legally work wherever you want because they can just hire you. The company is no longer responsible for getting you your work visa. When you get this APRC, you get a work visa that goes with it. So you just give that to any employer and you're good to go. They don't have to apply for you. So there's no illegal hoop to jump there. You're as good as gold. Okay, so that's all I have to say about getting your visa / residency / ARC, APRC. It's kind of up to you in the long run which one you want to go for. But the great thing about staying in one country for an extended number of years is that new options open up for you. You're not stuck in a classroom. There are other things that you can do if you want to. Other options now available. Working part-time legally, working at a university or a college, or working online, YouTube. Lots of things open up to you because you're no longer stuck to a company. Your time is your own. You have so much more freedom, and while still living in a foreign country. Those then are the topics we're going to be discussing next video. I'm going to talk about the further options you have instead of just being in a classroom, because there are lots. And after a while, you might find you're getting burnt out. Maybe you'll find you don't want to be a clown in a cram school doing a little dance. You want to do something a bit more serious, or you want to do something a bit more technologically involved. Well, there are definitely options available, especially when you have the freedom of an APRC. Okay, I'll catch you next time. Bye for now.